Hello and welcome back to Tiny Artist TV. Today we are doing day 8 of Orctober/Inktober, and today's prompt, as you can see, well, I actually made a little bit of a mistake. It's supposed to be frail, but as you can see, I'm working with the idea of fragile. But my first idea here does still fall in line with what the prompt was actually supposed to be. Initially, I was thinking of drawing my goblin character, Rigsy. He's this basically really old, really tiny King's Advisor type character. The second idea I had was my other character, Mokai, who I think I mentioned in like either last video or a couple videos ago. Mokai picking up a goblin who's just in her way or just being disobedient or whatever, picking him up by the scruff and just giving him her 2 cents. The goblin itself being fragile, not Mokai. She's obviously not fragile. And then the third idea I had was Rigsy again, but holding up some kind of like ancient, decrepit, sacred text. The idea wasn't really fleshed out super like well, so I decided not to go with that one. And then I sit there for a little bit and decide I don't like any of these ideas because it's too open. It's not quite as in line with the prompt as I wanted it to be. So then I remember my husband has a character who is an alchemist, and alchemists deal with very fragile materials. So here I am sketching out Namunda. She is one of Trugar's 4 wives, and she is the quote-unquote Dr. Mom of the brood. So the first sketch I did of her is really cute, but I was like, oh, this looks a little too high-tech for an orc society living in trees. So I do start another sketch, but it's kind of out of frame. Also, I want to apologize because apparently the entire video is just slightly off kilter. So you're just gonna have to deal with that. But it is, you know, you can still pretty much see what I'm doing here. That's the most important thing. So if that doesn't bother you, keep watching. If it does bother you, just click away or click to the end so you can see the end result. I am also, of course, posting all of these prompt pictures on my Twitter page as well at tinyartist516 on Twitter. So if you want to jump ahead and see what I'm working on before I post the videos, you can follow me on Twitter as well. But now we're getting into the sketch, and basically I have Namunda kind of in her she doesn't quite have a laboratory. I guess it's kind of her little tent, and she's hunched over this pot of herbs and mixing something together. I haven't decided whether it's a potion or a toxin, but she's very concentrated in this picture, and I like the idea of drawing orcs that aren't in like traditional roles. Typically when people draw orcs, you see them like bashing things up or like just, you know, being orcs. But the Bear Clan, there's a little more room for these quieter roles, like these background roles. Because of where they live, they don't have to constantly fight to survive, and they can focus on science and art and literature and things like that. Trugar himself actually has quite a collection of books. I'm actually going to be drawing him soon for one of the prompts, and he's really into logomancy and runes and studying language, and so it's going to be really fun and kind of tedious, but really fun to draw all of his huge collection of books that he's amassed over the years. But focusing back onto Namunda here, she also has her own little collection of scrolls and text, and just all the information that she's gathered over years from nature magic and just her own experimentation, just little notes of things that work here and there. There's a couple of scrolls. She's got pots and plants and just all kinds of vials, all things that are very fragile. I also kind of went with the more open concept of fragile, like let's say the term like fragile peace. Peace on its own is not an object that you can hold. So the idea of this concoction's consistency being fragile, or like a very delicate balance of things. So everything in this picture, besides Namunda, is pretty much fragile, kind of fits into the prompt. So that's the idea that I went with for that. I had fun trying to decide how to design her clothing. As you've probably noticed with a lot of my Orctober prompts, I do a lot of like fur. But fur and science, or hair and science, don't play very well together. First thing I had to do, of course, was like put her hair up and away, because it's just, it's safety. You're doing science, you gotta be safe. But then I thought, like, what would she actually have access to as far as like lab safety clothing? And I know this sounds like a really boring lecture at this point, but I figured she would have like some really thick, like a long leather coat. They wouldn't have like doctor's coats or lab coats or anything like that. Besides, those are like really thin cotton anyway. So she has this like really high-end, like nice thick leather coat and pants, and there actually is a little patch on her pants where she took a little bit of splash damage, but she patched it right back over. And of course, as a alchemist, she has their signature poisoner's gloves, which are just like these really thick leather gloves that actually they're supposed to have. So I guess these ones aren't the poisoner's gloves, because they have tips in the fingertips where you can actually apply poison. Like you can, it's like a small glass vial, and you can put your poison in the glove. So like when you attack someone with melee damage, it poisons them with that. So it's slashing damage and sustained poison damage. So in my head, they're her poisoner's gloves, but they don't have the little tip on them. Trying to sketch out Priori's version of an alchemist chart. It basically breaks down everything into a category of certain elements, which of course be fire, water, earth, air, and then life and death are also included on the chart. And I thought I would make it kind of a background element. This is what I'm trying to draw. As you can see, there's a lot of little symbols there. So I get rid of the poster altogether and just draw it straight on her wall, like it's been etched into the leather or the stone or whatever of her tent. So as we're getting to the end of the sketch here, before I put in the last little bits of details, I'm just going in and cleaning up all those annoying pencil lines. I catch that sleeve, the little bit of the sleeve that I missed earlier, and then I go back in and just add some texture to her hair. That's pretty much going to be the last thing I have to do with this one. I really enjoy doing all the little books and pots and thinking through like what she would actually have in her kit. There's nothing's really labeled there, but she's got a couple of her diaries and what looks like the little salt and sugar jars are not salt and sugar. They're not things you would want to consume. But so this is pretty much going to finish up today's sketch. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And of course, if you like these videos, go ahead and think about subscribing. But until then, see you guys next time and have a weird day.